Cheers.
Morning, friends, and welcome to Worship at New Garden Friends meeting. Happy Easter. Friends, it is our practice here at New Garden Friends meeting to extend a wide and warm welcome to everyone who joins us for worship. You are welcome here among friends. No matter where you are from, no matter who you are, no matter where you may be on your faith journey, you are welcome here at New Garden Friends meeting. Friends, our reading this morning is from the Gospel of John, chapter 20, verses 1 through 18. I'm reading this morning from the New Revised Standard Version. Early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark outside, Mary Magdalene came to Jesus' tomb, and she saw that the stone had been removed from the entrance to the tomb. And so she ran and went to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one whom Jesus loved. And she said to them, "They have taken the Lord out of his tomb, and I do not know where they have laid his body." And then Peter and the other disciple set out and went to the tomb, and the two were running together. But the other disciple, the one whom Jesus loved, outran Peter and reached the tomb first. He bent down and looked and saw the linen wrappings lying on the floor. And then Simon Peter came and followed him and went into the tomb, and he saw the linen wrappings lying there and the cloth that had been on Jesus's head, lying not with the linen wrappings, but rolled up in a place by itself. And then the other disciple who had reached the tomb first also went in, and they saw and they believed, but as yet they did not understand that he must rise from the dead. And then the disciples returned back to their homes. But Mary stood weeping outside the tomb. And as she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb, and then she saw two angels, one sitting at the head where Jesus had been lying, and one sitting where his feet had been. And they said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping?" And she said to them, "They have taken away my Lord, and I do not know where they have taken his body." And when she said this, she turned and she saw Jesus standing there beside her. But she did not know that it was him. She thought that it was a gardener, and so she said to him, "Sir, if you have carried away the body of my Lord, please tell me where you have laid him, and I will take him away." And Jesus said to her, "Mary." And she turned and she said to him in Hebrew, "Rabboni," which means teacher. And Jesus said to her, "Do not hold on to me, for I have not yet ascended to God. But go to my brothers and say to them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and to your God." And so Mary Magdalene went into the morning. She went to the disciples and she said, "I have seen the Lord." And she told them all of the things that had been said to her that morning. Christ is risen. Happy Easter, friends. The story of Easter morning begins before first light, and the whole story unfolds as the dawn is rising. Morning breaks, and in that breaking dawn, the sorrow of the cross turns into wild and incredible hope. At the crucifixion, death had the victory. Jesus, a nonviolent resistor, a rebel, was executed by the Roman Empire. The empire occupied the land in which Jesus lived. And Jesus, who preached a radical message of love and justice and mercy, was killed for disrupting the power of that empire. His death was horrifying, but also predictable. The Roman Empire treated Jesus the way that they treated everyone who resisted against that empire. But then comes the dawn of Easter morning. Mary, the first preacher of the good news, goes to mourn at Jesus's grave. She discovers that the impossible has happened, that death has turned to life. One of the founders of Quakerism and Quaker theologian Margaret Fell wrote this: "Mark this, all you who despise and oppose the message of the Lord that God has sends by women. What would have become of the redemption of all of humankind had they not believed the holy message that the Lord Jesus sent by these women at the resurrection concerning his holy resurrection?" Women were the first prophets of the good news. And that is powerful because women at Jesus's time, just as they are today, were dismissed and so often unheard. But Mary, she runs into the light of Easter morning and she proclaims the good news. She is filled with wonder and with joy, because violent oppression has been overcome that morning, and love has the victory. This Holy Week, as I have sat with the story of Jesus's violent death on the cross and his resurrection on Easter morning, I have also been sitting with the news from the trial of Derek Chauvin, a police officer who in May of 2020 knelt on the neck of George Floyd for over 9 minutes. Floyd was not the only Black man who was killed by the police in 2020. But his death was one of several last year that sparked worldwide protests and demonstrations. The Roman Empire, spurred by the desire for greater wealth and ever greater power, occupied a vast number of countries in Jesus's time. Jesus was killed by that empire because Jesus's life did not matter to them. He was simply a small annoyance to a massive structure of oppressive power. Likewise, George Floyd's life did not matter to structures of power within our country. Our country, which was designed to privilege white people by disregarding the humanity of all others. Both Jesus and Floyd died at the hands of systems of oppression. And this is why Easter matters to me. Because Easter morning changes how the story ends. It teaches us that oppression can cease. It tells us that empires can be toppled. It tells us that violence does not need to have the final word. Where is the sting of death on Easter morning? On Easter morning, tragedy is replaced by joy. Where is the victory for violence when there is an empty grave on Easter morning? Where is the power of hate when love incredibly, unbelievably wins on Easter morning? Jesus lives, and when he lives, the divine tells us that we can defeat evil within our world. George Floyd is gone forever from this world. And we all know that it is unlikely that there will be any real justice for his death. But that does not mean that the evil of racism cannot be defeated. That is the hope of Easter morning. That is the good news that Mary runs into the morning proclaiming to the world. Christ is risen and love can win. The resurrection does not release us from personal responsibility. The divine partners with us to bring about justice and peace and mercy in our world. But the resurrection of Christ does gift us with something profound. It gives us hope that the story can have a new ending. It gives us a new narrative, one that tears down the powers of our world. It reminds us that just because hate has a crushing hold does not mean that it will win. It reminds us of how tenacious, how irresistible, how irrepressible love is. It reminds us that transformation is happening all around us, that resurrection is possible. Every spring, as the world turns green again, we are reminded that it is a miracle, that new life is always possible. Things are changing always, and things are always changeable. No power is so great that it cannot be defeated by love. This Easter, I want you to hear again the good news that Christ is risen. And may that good news plant a seed of hope within your heart. This Easter, I want you to think back on the last year, this unprecedented, difficult, painful year. Even in the midst of this incredibly hard year, how was love winning? What resurrections have you experienced in 2020? How have you found new life and change? What are you hopeful for this Easter morning, friends? Because there is so much to be hopeful for. What victories do you see for justice and love in our world? How have the systems of death been defeated in our community, and how are they being defeated within your heart? Happy Easter, friends. This morning, let us tell one another the truth of our faith, that love is winning and that love will win for every day to come. Friends, as we hold our sacred waiting worship together this morning, if you feel led to speak from the silence, I would love to hear what is bringing you hope this Easter morning.